Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for Monday, December 10th, 2018. On today's episode, we're going to talk about what we've been up to in the water cooler. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta, and joining me on today's podcast is Slash Film Managing Editor Jacob Hall.
Hello, hello.
Weekend Editor Brad Oman.
Hey, that's me.
Senior Writer Ben Pearson.
Hey, what's going on?
And writers Hoai-Tran.
Hey, everyone.
And Chris Evangelista.
Hello.
Guys, Christmas is only 2 weeks away. Are you prepared?
Not in the least.
Yeah, nowhere near.
Yeah, I'm getting those like emails.
Super prepared, Peter.
You're super prepared?
Whatever, Jacob.
I'm getting those emails that's like, if you don't order in this next week, it won't get to you before Christmas. And I have not ordered my Christmas gift, so it's giving me anxiety.
The reason that I'm not talking about what I've been doing in the water cooler section here is because all I've been doing is just ordering Christmas presents for everybody. So like I'm almost done with that, but it's a really time-consuming process. If you have like a decent-sized family and you're trying to get, one or two things for every person, and it takes a while. So if you guys haven't started
his
yet,
family. Ben loves his family. Where?
Where I just go with the gift cards for my extended family, which sounds lame, but that's what they do for me. So it's like, okay, you guys are getting the same treatment then.
Yeah.
What do you guys feel on gift cards? I mean, I feel like it is impersonal, but it allows you to buy what you want and maybe not get a crappy gift. If there is such thing as a crappy gift, like where do you guys fall?
I love gift cards. I have heard people, my wife actually thinks they're too impersonal, but please, everyone listening, send me a gift card. I love them.
Yeah, I don't mind them when it comes to my extended family because they most of the time don't have any idea what to get me. But and my parents are really good with giving gifts, so that I get satisfied when it comes to like real gifts from them.
I fall in between because I love the process of opening presents. It just makes it feel like Christmas, but I do like spending gift cards on things I actually want.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
A gift card from like an acquaintance or a friend is fine, but my wife said, "Here's a gift card." I'd be like, "No, why do you hate me?" So.
Jacob, you're already prepared for Christmas because you celebrated Christmas early.
I did. I have several Christmases happening this year. I have Christmas in San Antonio with my family, Christmas in Dallas with my wife's family. We're hosting a Christmas party with our friends with a gift exchange next week. So this weekend, my wife and I said, why dilute our Christmas? Why try to squeeze in our personal Christmas between everything else when we can give it its own space and time to celebrate it today? So on Saturday, we did. We opened gifts. We spent the evening together. We went out to dinner. We watched movies. And we just had a really lovely, nice, laid back, low-key Christmas. And I recommend it to all adults. Once you're an adult, you can make your own Christmas. You don't have to follow the rules. And it worked out great. I mean, it was a really nice, fun, adult way to spend Christmas without any of the needless chaos, knowing that we have that to look forward to later in the month. And I'm even wearing let's put it this way. I'm old enough now that one of my main gifts was a pair of slippers. And I'm wearing them now, and they're lovely. I'm very happy to have been given a pair of slippers for Christmas. My first pair of adult slippers. And I'm a size 17. So finding a size 17 slipper is an incredible ordeal. So thank you, Natalie. Merry Christmas.
Wow. Well, while you are celebrating Christmas early, Brad is a little late to this holiday season. Brad, what's going on?
Well, so because I was in Utah until the middle of last week, at the beginning of December and after Thanksgiving, I didn't get to get my Christmas tree up as early as I normally do. So once I got back here and now that I moved into my new place, I kind of had to get everything situated so I could get the tree up. And so I finally took the time on Friday night to actually get my tree up. I don't have a lot of my ornaments situated on it yet, but for the past few years, I've done this thing on social media across Facebook and Instagram and Twitter called the Bradvent calendar, or on Twitter through my Ethan Anderton account, I just call it the Adventerton calendar. And I just post a new ornament from my collection every day that I can. I usually get a pretty decent amount of new ornaments each year from Hallmark and whatnot. So I'm starting that a little bit late this year. I'm going to make up for it by doubling up over the next few days and getting some stuff out there. But I did post like a video with this a collection that I'm kind of proud of a Charlie Brown Christmas figures of like Pigpen and Linus and Schroeder and Sally and Lucy and Charlie Brown and Snoopy and his doghouse. So that I had fun getting that all set up here in my new place, and I'm gonna get a bunch of the ornaments on the tree soon, so I can start getting photos of them.
Very cool. I have not been doing anything Christmassy this week. I went to the Magic Castle, as I usually do. I don't talk about that every week on this podcast, but I wanted to bring it up this time because I ran into composer Michael Giacchino and director Brad Bird at the castle, and I was able to perform a magic trick for them and blow their minds, hopefully. I don't know. They seemed impressed. It was cool to run into them at the castle. Michael Giacchino is a member of the Magic Castle. There's two different types of membership. There's associate membership, which basically means you're rich and you buy in very expensively. And there's magician members who actually have to audition and show that they're a magician. Michael Giacchino somehow is a magician member, so that probably means that he actually went through the audition process, which is kind of crazy. Because usually, people usually celebrities just go for the associate membership because they don't, want to go through the hassle of auditioning. But people like him, Jason Sudeikis, recently, a few months back, just passed his audition as well to become a member. What else have I been doing? I celebrated my girlfriend Kitcher's birthday this past week. We after going out to eat, she wanted to buy a puzzle because we often mention them on this podcast, but the Tim Tracker, this is a YouTube channel. They are usually on their kitchen table. They have a puzzle that they're been working on off and on throughout the weeks and whatever. And she saw that and we haven't done a puzzle, ever together. Probably I haven't done a puzzle since I was a kid. So we were at Barnes & Noble and we bought a Yoda puzzle. We had the choice of buying an easy puzzle, and we went for this Yoda puzzle, which is a poster of Yoda in the swamp, and it's all kind of green hues. And I think we probably should have went for an easier puzzle because it's very hard to find out where these pieces are because every piece is almost the same exact color, just variations of the same color. So we've been trying to come up with excuses not to complete it. I think we're probably a 10th of the way there. And we watched some movies while doing this puzzle, which I will talk about later in this podcast. Yeah. So anyways, we've been doing a puzzle. HD, you did something very exciting this past week.
Yeah, so I went to see Harry Potter and the Cursed Child on Broadway, and I didn't hate it, which came to a shock to me because I had read the book, the script, I guess you would say, the play itself, when it was released as a book 2 years ago, and it didn't impress me that much. It read to me like glorified Harry Potter fan fiction, and I just couldn't see how this was something that came from the hand of J.K. Rowling and that could become a successful play like it is now. It's very much acclaimed. But when I saw the play on Broadway this past Wednesday, I think, which, by the way, is an 8-hour experience in total about, it's a
because
play
it's
that's in two
plays.
parts.
Yeah.
Yes, it's 2 parts. It's Harry Potter and the Cursed Child Part 1 and Part 2. And sometimes you can do it on one night and the second part on the second night, or you can do it all in one day like I did. And all in one day, it's about 8 hours plus like intermission and like a break between the plays. So I was out of this arena or this venue like 10 hours later. But it was worth all of those hours, surprisingly, because this is such a great staging and such a beautifully done play. Like the cast is great, but the effects especially are just jaw-dropping. The effects, I'm not sure how a lot of them played out or like how they pulled them off, and I don't want to know because it managed to keep that illusion of magic existing in this world, and it kind of gave me that same emotion of seeing the Harry Potter movies for the first time, or reading about Harry Potter for the first time, and experiencing that childhood wonder and awe of magic. So this was something that I didn't think they could pull it off. The plot is still total nonsense, but the fact that the staging was so great and the cast was just so good, especially the actor who played Harry. I can't recall the name of, but he was amazing, and he's, I think, was nominated for a Tony as well. The main three were nominated for Tonys, and the actor the character of Scorpius as well was very appealing to me. He was a character I remember reading in the play, and was not. I didn't really buy into it. I thought that he was definitely written as a character who was supposed to play to our emotions and was obviously written to be a fan favorite character. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever. I'm not going to buy it. But then watching it on stage, I immediately fell in love and was like, I will die for this boy. So I really enjoyed Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. And I wholly recommend, even if you didn't like reading the play, to see it in person, just because it is worth it. And it's so just magical to see.
Yeah, I also saw this production earlier this year. I think I talked about it on the podcast. I 100% agree with everything you said. The production value of this show is unmatched. I have not seen anything even close to it. And yeah, the story is kind of bad. But I don't know. I feel bad for anybody who just read the book version of it. I guess it wasn't a book. It was a what do you call that? What is a play script called?
I believe it actually is called a book in parlance of Broadway.
Okay.
At least I know that's from a musical. A musical's script is called a book. I can't speak for a stage show, so who knows? I could be wrong.
Yeah. But you're right. The magic in this is just amazing, and I don't even know how a lot of it is done. Okay, let's move on to what we've been reading. Chris, what have you been reading?
I got myself an advanced copy of The Soprano Sessions by Alan Sepinwall and Matt Zoller-Seitz, and I just started reading it, but it's immediately fantastic. If you've read, their Breaking Bad books or the Mad Men book, it's structured the same way, where they go through every single episode one at a time. It's like an episode guide / a critical reevaluation of the series, and it's great. It's just a great look at how that show literally changed TV. Like everything we think of as peak TV today really originated with that show, and for better and for worse. But it just reminds you of how groundbreaking and how incredible that series really was, and how it still holds up to this day. And I'm very excited to read more of it. I've been reading it every chance I can get.
Do you know when The Soprano Sessions comes out in bookshelves?
It will be out in January. I think I don't have the exact date in front of me, but it's sometime in January.
That's disappointing. I feel like that would be the perfect Christmas gift for.
Yeah, I don't know why. I guess they have their own. January 8th is the date it's out. I just looked it up. So I don't know why it's not out in time for Christmas, but that's the way it goes, I guess.
And Jacob, you've been reading Console Wars now that they have announced that they're making that into a television series. What do you think?
First of all, I just want to say that up front, so we're clear about this. Blake Harris, the author of Console Wars, does write for Slash Film on occasion. I do not know him personally, but I have edited his work. But Console Wars is so far spectacular. I am about 100 pages into it, and I'm enjoying it so much. For those of you who missed the news last week, this is a book that chronicles the rise of Sega in the 90s as it became the chief rival to Nintendo in the video game space, and specifically follows Nintendo of America as it sort of led the charge against Nintendo. And it's way Blake writes the book is that he consolidates a lot of information into scenes. So instead of having a dry historical approach to it, he imagines moments where he essentially writes it as a movie. He imagines scenes where people talk, and he would combine 2 or 3 conversations or combine events just for the sake of clarity, so that it reads paced like a novel or reads paced like a movie. So you can really reading it, I can vividly see how this is going to be a TV show, how it was going to be a movie, and it is just incredibly entertaining. And if you don't have to be a video game fan to really appreciate what's going on here, it's going to be a fan of David and Goliath stories, or a fan of really smart people trying to solve tricky problems. I mean, the main character, so to speak, of the book is Tom Kalinske, who's the new head of Sega of America. And he's just this fascinating figure. Like, he created Flintstones vitamins. He saved Barbie. He created He-Man toys. And pretty much he was the guy who tasked with making sure Sega became a force in America. And he's the guy who saw the original designs for Sonic and said, oh, these don't work at all. Let's fix Sonic. And he's just this kind of like guy, like this kind of quiet titan in the world of toys and video games. And I'm very, very excited to learn more about him. Very excited to get into more meat of the book where Nintendo and Sega start really butting heads. But like last week before I read this, I kind of had a vague picture of what this movie could be like. And reading it now, I think because Blake Harris is clearly a movie fan himself, being a slash film contributor, that he wrote this book with a cinematic edge that makes it extremely fun to read. I also picked up the omnibus of the new Silver Surfer series. This ran at Marvel for I think about maybe 25 issues or so over the past few years. It wrapped up last year from writer Dan Slott and Michael Allred. It's now all collected in one hardcover. And this is one of the best Marvel runs I've experienced in recent years. It is very indebted to Doctor Who. Dan Slott, the writer, is very much been outspoken that he inspired by Doctor Who to have Silver Surfer team up with a girl from Earth and go on outer space adventures. And he's sort of the stoic superhero, and she's sort of the voice of reason who gets to react to all the outrageous things they encounter. And it is so funny and so moving and romantic and weird. And it really is a reminder that the superhero canvas is so big and broad that we don't give enough credit to the stories that are really going above and beyond to do something truly special and unique. And if you want like really big-hearted sci-fi where the emotions and the like ideas meld together perfectly, this is all one collection. I think it's $75, probably cheaper on Amazon, but it is one of the best collections you could read or give as a gift this holiday season. And I'm not. No one's paying me to say that. I love it that much. So.
I mentioned a couple weeks ago I saw the new Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and I fell in love with Miles Morales, and I came home and I downloaded the Marvel Unlimited app, and I was marathoning through those comic books, the original Ultimate Spider-Man comic books by Brian Michael Bendis, featuring Miles Morales. I've still been reading more of those. It's kind of weird because I did read a lot of superhero comics as a kid, and then when in my teenage years I read a lot of like graphic novels, like more of the arcs that were kind of standalone kind of stuff, like Superman Red Sun, kind of stuff like that. And in my 20s I kind of fell in love with non-superhero comics, like the stuff that happens at Image, like Saga and stuff like that. So this is kind of a return to me to superhero comics, and it's kind of weird that you're kind of reading the story of Miles Morales, and then all of a sudden, this crossover event happens where, the United States is in shambles, and it's like, it kind of interrupts the story that's been going on, and it's not something I'm used to in this kind of, narrative storytelling. It's kind of weird. I don't know. I know comic book fans are probably used to this. But Jacob, does it still weird you out, like, when something like that happens? Like, I guess it's like real life, right? Like, it's not like one story ends and then all of a sudden, like, another one begins. Like, some of these things just come out of nowhere.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm weirded out by it anymore, but I'm definitely frustrated by it. I know a lot of comic fans are as well, because you're reading a story that's chugging along at a good pace, it's doing extremely well, and suddenly you have to pause for 2 months because a world-altering event is happening, and Spider-Man has to be involved because it's affecting the entire world, and it's really annoying. I know writers have expressed their displeasure with this in the past, because sometimes they'll have a huge plan with their story, and suddenly the world-altering event makes that plan impossible. It is really, really annoying, and to the point where if there's a big crossover event happening, I will sometimes drop the series I'm reading. Like, if let's say I'm reading Spider-Man, and for the next 2 months he's going to be off in this crossover, and his issues are tied into the crossover, I'll say, I guess for 2 months I'm not reading Spider-Man, and I won't pick up those issues, and I'll resume when the story picks back up. But yeah, it probably reads extremely strangely in a trade, where like when it's collected in a book, where you're just reading this ongoing story, and suddenly, here's a giant crossover thing happening. Whereas in issues, you kind of know it's coming because it's being advertised to you, and it's being sold that way. But it doesn't make it any less frustrating, and I really wish there was a better way that they could handle this.
Yeah, I think you put it well. It is kind of frustrating. Let's move on to what we've been watching. While me and Kitra were trying to put together this puzzle, or start the seeds of putting together the edges of the puzzle, we put on the Christmas Chronicles, which Jacob, I think you talked about last week on the podcast.
I think it was a week before that, maybe, but
okay.
It was But me and Chris both saw that movie.
Yeah, I think you called it a Hallmark movie. I think if you think this is the Hallmark movie, Jacob, you have not seen Hallmark movies recently. This is way better than a Hallmark movie. Okay, first of all, I was watching this half while I was putting together a puzzle. I wasn't, this wasn't my sole enjoyment, me sitting on a couch, with no distractions. This is kind of like a secondary thing. But I somehow enjoyed this movie. It's super cheesy. It's somehow enjoyable. Kurt Russell, I think, makes it because he just goes for it. Like you could see this as like a late career move. He needs money, but like every scene of him as Santa, you can tell like he's giving it his all. Like this is like, his chance at an Oscar. Like, I don't know, it just feels to me like his heart is like really in this, and I can appreciate that. The film also has this kind of weird turn where at one point they go to the North Pole and we meet the elves, Santa's elves, and they're all like these like CG creatures, so it ends up being kind of like this CGI live action hybrid movie at some sort. But I don't know, I found it enjoyable. It's probably a good movie to have on in the background and to laugh at the cheesiness of it. But Jacob, am I wrong?
I think you're wrong. But at the same time, I think that this and Hallmark movies share the exact same purpose, what you described, which is to have something on the background while you wrap gifts or bake Christmas treats. That's the only purpose they serve. This one's a little bit glossier, but otherwise it's the exact same thing. It serves the exact same purpose.
Maybe, but it's just so much better than a Hallmark movie. Like the acting is so much better, the production value is so much better. Okay, so while we were putting together the puzzle, that ended, and Netflix now has this thing where when you end a movie, it'll just start randomly playing another movie that either it assumes you want to see or is somehow related to this movie. And that movie, we were too lazy to go to the remote, and that movie was The Princess Switch, which HT was very enthusiastic, basically talking about it either last week or the week before on the podcast, and I don't remember which. And we got like 40 minutes into it before we got unlazy enough to go over to the remote and hit stop because...
I don't blame you because it's terrible.
that feels more to me like a Hallmark movie than the Christmas Chronicles. But I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it because of how bad it is, and I think that's exactly what I'm looking for in a bad Hallmark Christmas movie. And
she's just such a horrible actress. Like
that I disagree with completely.
I don't know. Okay. What else did I watch? I watched a lot of stuff this week. I watched the first 2 episodes of the Bravo television series adaptation of Dirty John. Dirty John was this podcast about a woman who meets a man who claims he's like a surgeon, and her daughters, who are grown up, don't actually like this guy and think that he's, lying to her and he's hiding something. And obviously this is no spoiler, this is the premise of the podcast. The podcast is called Dirty John. It turns out that he is lying and there is something shady going on. The television adaptation isn't great. I think Bravo doesn't have their narrative non-reality show game down quite yet, but it is kind of addictive. It is kind of I do want to keep on watching it. It is entertaining. It is weird. I feel like the original podcast was like 6 episodes long, I think. This is, I think, 9 episodes of television, and I just finished watching the 2nd episode of the TV series, and the our woman protagonist, who is played by Connie Britton.
Britain, yep.
Yeah. In the guy, John, is played by Eric Bana. She kind of figures out that he's lying to her. And that's at the end of the second episode, so I'm kind of wondering, how do they have, 7 more episodes to go with this? But I'm curious to see. It has a good cast. Juno Temple's in this. Julia Garner, who I know best as she's from Ozark. She plays Ruth in Ozark, but I think she's been in a bunch of things, including The Americans and Maniac. And I really love her as an actress. I want to see more of her on the big screen. And I think the third episode of that just aired, so you could, if you want to catch up on Dirty John, I think it's on demand. You can catch it out on Bravo. What else have I been watching? I watched a screener of The Favorite. This is a movie that I knew, or I thought I wouldn't like. It's a period dramedy starring Emma Stone. Although some people are arguing if Emma Stone is the lead character in this movie. I don't know. And Kitra really wanted to watch this. We had a screener. Jacob really made the case for this movie last week, citing movies like Mean Girls, getting my interest. So despite me being very sure that I was not going to like this movie, I put it on, and it's okay. It's just not my thing. It's not a bad movie. I don't dislike this movie. It's just not for me. I know people are saying this is one of the best movies of this year. I mean, I think Jacob said that. HT, you also saw this film. So instead of me, being all negative and telling people not to see this, because I think most people are probably going to agree with you. What did you think?
I absolutely love this film. It's not only one of my favorite movies of the year, I'm highly debating making it my favorite of the year. It's so dark and pitch black and funny and twisted. I'm kind of inclined to like period dramas. I like movies that I don't mind movies that take place in the 1800s or the 1500s or something, because I think that political intrigue and human relationships are so interesting in any time period. But I do get that a lot of people think them stuffy. But The Favorite is none of that at all. It's like you take the most savage and delirious period piece and put it through a fun house mirror, and it just distorts everything and makes it feel so strange and oddball and macabre in a way that you can't help just be riveted the entire time. Emma Stone, Rachel Weisz, Olivia Colman are all fantastic in it. I especially love Rachel Weisz's everything she does, who just exudes this kind of power and confidence the entire time that I just wanted her to murder me or something. one of those things. But it's such a fun and very, very pitch black satire, I think, that I enjoyed a lot. And it's also very queer too. There's really interesting dynamic between the 3 lead actresses. I don't know if you could call any of them the lead, because it feels so much like they 3 are the main character in a way. Emma Stone is also great too, because she has some great reaction shots. And I feel like while she was great in La La Land this last year or 2 years ago, this is the one that she would deserve a Best Actress nod and or win for, because she's so good in this. And I completely agree with everything Jacob said last week. And I think Chris has some good things to say about this movie as well. And I think he was also kind of on the fence about it because of the director Yorgos Lanthimos.
Yeah, I tend to not like his movies because they play out as cruelty for the sake of cruelty, and it just wears me down, man. I sort of liked The Lobster, but it was just too mean for me. And then Killing of a Sacred Deer is just, I hated that movie because it was just nonstop misery porn, and I was not in the mood for it. So I was really hesitant to watch this, but I got the screener for it, and everyone's been saying such good things about it. So I said, what the hell? And I love this. For me, this is his best movie because even though it is, a mean movie, it's not as cruel. I guess it didn't seem as cruel to me as those other two movies.
I think this movie's cruel.
I don't know. I don't know. The meanness was more comical than it is in those other movies, at least as I saw it. But I was in hysterics during this movie. There's this like dance sequence early in the film. I was just losing my mind at how funny it was. It's just insane. It's just so over the top and goofy, and because up until this point, the movie is playing pretty much, it's sticking to the period, and then this dance happens and it becomes totally anachronistic, and it's like, oh, this would never happen in that era, and it's insane. It's so, and it just gets better from there. Everyone is really good in it. So this is definitely in my top 10. It's number 8 on my top 10 list of the year.
I want to chime in on the dance scene real quick because I think that scene encapsulates a movie for me in so many ways because, as Chris says, the scene itself is hilarious. Like, it's just a really silly dance sequence. But then it's immediately followed by another character having an emotional breakdown while watching it for reasons that become clear as you watch the movie. And the juxtaposition between this really silly dance scene and a character having a really almost terrifying breakdown because of it is this movie in a nutshell. It's one of my favorite scenes of the year for sure.
I actually also want to interject that the dance scene might not be totally unrealistic because even though they start kind of breakdancing at one point, historically, ballet actually started as a court sort of etiquette thing where noblemen and kings would have to, dance ballet as part of like the court society, and they would do these really elaborate dance scenes that would probably not be far from what we saw in the movie. This is just like that times 10.
Yeah, I don't know about how accurate it is. I mean, it gets like they're literally breakdancing at one point. I'm pretty sure, but I might be wrong. You never know.
Like, I don't know. See, this is the same reason why I'm not going to see Suspiria this year. I'm so sure I'm not going to like the movie. Like, do you guys have any movies that, like, you are so sure that you're not going to like the movie that, like, you just want to avoid just because you don't want to be annoyed even more?
There are lots of movies like that.
Yeah. I feel like for me...
Crimes of Grindelwald.
That's why I've been avoiding it, but I probably will watch at some point. Another one for me is probably mid-90s, because I feel like it's a movie that's definitely not about me and not made for me. And while I don't think I'm going to hate it, I just don't think I want to go out of my way to watch it, even though I've heard good things about it.
I've actually avoided watching 8th Grade, even though everyone says it's good, because everyone follows up. It was so good with it made me feel awful, and I'm not really in the mood for that anymore. Like everyone who praises this movie ends the praise with, "I also wanted to die while watching it." So I'm just not.
Well, I don't think it's like makes you feel awful. I think it just makes you relive some of the most awkward and horrible.
Why would I want to do that?
And it's quite optimistic too, Chris. I will say it's not got a happy ending, but it actually does have somewhat like of a happy ending. It's more optimistic than you think, despite many people saying that it made them like hate themselves.
Yeah.
From 8th grade until my senior year in high school, I was like, I literally had a cartoon rain cloud above my head. I don't want to go back and think about that period anymore. So I'm going to skip this movie.
I think you would enjoy it, Chris. Okay, well, what else have I been up to? On Saturday, we didn't know what to do, and we looked at the movie times, and we saw that Bumblebee was having a nationwide sneak preview screening on Saturday night, which I'm sure we reported on, but I just completely forgot about. And we were able to secure tickets for that, even though the only tickets available were in the front row. So,
why bother?
Because here's the thing. First of all, the last time I sat in the front row was at the ArcLight, and the ArcLight has a good front row. You can sit in the front row and it not be bothered at all. Like, it's so far away from the screen. So I was a little, hadn't been in the front row in a long time. And also, my press screening for Bumblebee, I think, is 2 weeks from now. And I have other things going on that night, which I cannot make my press screening. So the earliest I could see it is the weekend it actually comes out. And I don't know. I want to see this movie, and everybody's already talking about it. So I wanted to see it. So yeah, we got tickets to the front row. Kitra was fine with that. And we also decided to see a movie before that at the same AMC, the AMC in Century City. We saw Anna and the Apocalypse, which, did that premiere at Fantastic Fest or Sundance?
Fantastic Fest.
Fantastic Fest. We got there early into the theater, and AMC usually has those pre-roll ads running, like the pre-show entertainment. And there was nothing on the screen. The lights were up in the house, and sitting next to me and 2 seats over from me was a one of those sweep things that they use, so like those bucket sweep things to clean the theater. So I'm sitting there. We're sitting there with a theater maybe 1/3 full, waiting for this movie to start. And when I go to press screenings, usually the press screenings don't start early. Usually they'll start like 10 minutes late. So it's not unusual for a movie to start late. And I look at my watch, and it's 10 minutes after the movie was supposed to start, and there's still nothing on the screen. The lights are still up. So I had to go out to the concessions and be like, what's going on here? This movie was supposed to start 10 minutes ago. And they actually were like, oh, that's weird. And actually had to go up to the projection booth and put on the movie. So that happened. But I did get to see 2 movies with my AMC A-List pass, and it didn't cost me nearly as much as one ticket it does in Los Angeles. So that's fine. I saw Anna and the Apocalypse. This is a horror musical. It takes place during the zombie apocalypse. It's a story of a high school girl named Anna who, is going through the normal high school stuff, and they're, breaking into songs. This is insanely charming. The zombie apocalypse breaks out. I feel like this movie, and it's also shot in the UK, so it almost feels like a movie that Edgar Wright should have came on and become a producer just so that they could get more people to see it. Executive produced from the guy that did Shaun of the Dead. And I do hope more people see this, but it is highly restrained by its budget. It's a lot of fun. It feels like its ambitions are much bigger than that budget. It does have a human villain, which is kind of cringeworthy, and I wish wasn't in there. Some of the songs are really good. Some of them are okay. I wish this movie had more songs. I would highly recommend this. This was a cute, fun movie. It's not one of my favorite movies of the year, but I recommend that you go check this out, Anna and the Apocalypse. And after that, I rushed over and we saw Bumblebee in the front row, and it wasn't that bad. It was bad at first for probably the first 5 minutes, especially this movie opens in this big battle on Cybertron, and it's kind of having that in your face is a little much, but and I'm usually a person that like needs his seat in like the middle of the theater and the halfway back and stuff like that. So for me to say I like this movie and under these circumstances, it's probably saying something. I was expecting to like this movie, but I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. I was shocked at how much I love this movie. The script is full of heart, and it's character first. The action is impressive, even though it's not Michael Bay. You can really tell Travis Knight came from the world of animation, and he's able to kind of like seamlessly blend these things together. It does feel like a lower budget Transformer film, and maybe that's a good thing. It doesn't, have these like roll that stakes kind of thing going for it. It does still have the cheesiness of, not as bad as the Michael Bay films, but at least the cheesiness here are not like horrible cringeworthy jokes. At least they're cheesy jokes that you can laugh at being cheesy, I feel like. So even that isn't bad. Haley Steinfeld she's just great. She's great in everything she's in, and she elevates this movie. I love the Generation 1 designs that we see in the Cybertron sequence, and the 80s time period is just perfect for this. I like this better than Transformers 1, and I know, like, a lot of people will be like, well, of course, it's a Transformers movie, Michael Bay, whatever. I really like Transformers 1. I thought Transformers 1 was a good movie. It's probably the only good movie in that franchise thus far. This movie, I think, is much better than that film. I don't know. I really, really enjoyed this movie. This movie is not saying anything original. It's not doing anything original. It's a combination of, E.T., Iron Giant, WALL-E, a bunch of stuff mishmashed together. But it does that so well, and it's so enjoyable. And, this movie has 100% of Rotten Tomatoes now, guys. Like, there's an 8 Transformers movie with 100% of Rotten Tomatoes, which is just crazy. Ichi, you also saw this over the weekend.
Yes. I have actually nothing to add after you gave that great review. I wrote the review for Bumblebee after I saw it on Saturday, and I completely agree with you. It's a fun, sincere, cheesy, in the best way kind of movie. Haley Steinfeld is phenomenal, and she is just such a fully realized character right from the get-go. Her character introduction is so fun and so good, and she is so assured as an actress, and I feel like this script, too, is very assured as well. Like, it knows what it's doing. It wants to recapture like that 80s nostalgia, but it also recaptures like the spirit of those early Amblin Entertainment movies. It feels like it came right out of that catalog, and it does that in the best way. It has, it's E.T. meets Iron Giant, and it's definitely much easier to watch too versus the Bayhem that you see in the other films. I've never been a huge fan of like CGI spectacle battles, but here like the color blocking is so vibrant and easy to distinguish that it doesn't, give you a headache whenever you watch it. And it's very character-driven action, and it feels like finally it's gotten to the core of what like Transformers as a franchise should be appealing to. It feels like a family film. It feels like it's made for kids who grew up playing with these toys in the 80s and want to see that fully realized on the screen. So I really enjoyed it, and I completely agree with you on everything you said, Peter.
And it's finally a Transformers film that is about a robot in disguise. Like really, after what have we had? 5 movies thus far? Like, yeah. Anyways, that is all that I have been watching this week. Chris, what have you been up to?
In addition to The Favorite, I watched Springsteen on Broadway, which is the Bruce Springsteen one-man show he's been doing on Broadway for several months now. Netflix filmed it, and it's going to drop on Netflix this Friday. And I have a review of it up on slashfilm.com right now, and I hope everyone goes and reads it. But it is incredible. I mean, anyone who's listened to one Bruce Springsteen song knows he's a gifted storyteller, but this really confirms how gifted he is, because it's nearly 3 hours long, and there's not like a dull moment. It's literally just him, telling stories and playing his songs, and it had me just, engrossed from beginning to end, and it gets really emotional. Like there's stuff where he's talking about his relationship with his father, and even though my relationship with my father was nothing like the relationship he talks about, it just made me like think a lot about my relationship with my father, and it just it got me very emotional, and he gets very emotional. It's a great show, and it's really funny too. Like, I had no idea Bruce Springsteen was this funny. Like he's like stand-up comic funny in this show. It's fantastic. Like, if this counted as a movie, it would probably be like in my top 10 movies of the year. But I feel like I'd be pushing it if I counted this as a movie, because it's really like a Broadway show. So I'm not going to be a jerk and do that, but it really is that good. It'll be on Netflix this Friday, and I encourage everyone to check it out, especially if you're a fan of his work. Then I also watched A Simple Favor, which is the Blake Lively Anna Kendrick movie. I thought the marketing for this made it look terrible, but a lot of people said it was really good. So I got the Blu-ray copy, and it really is very good. I enjoyed it a lot. I've never been. I'm not gonna say I disliked Blake Lively, but I never had much of an opinion of her. But in this, she's so good that I this is the type of role she needs to be playing more often, because she was clearly born to play this type of role, unlike the other things she's been doing with her career. And it's fun. I think it falls apart in like the last 20 minutes. And if those last 20 minutes happen differently, this actually might be in my like best of the year list. But because of the way the ending plays out, it kind of soured me on it. But everything else is great. It's basically like if Gone Girl was a comedy, it would be this movie. So if you're on the fence and you haven't checked this out, I encourage you to check it out. And finally, I watched Can You Ever Forgive Me, which is the Melissa McCarthy movie based on the true story of Lee Israel, who she was a writer and her career had dried up. So she started forging letters from famous literary figures and made a lot of money doing it. And this was another thing. I thought the marketing made it look really shitty, and I was like, I'm not going to see that. But again, I got a screener for it, and it's really good. This is hands down Melissa McCarthy's best performance, and it makes me angry she does so much bullshit like movies where she just plays someone who falls down a lot, because she's a really talented actress, and this proves how good she is. And I wish she would do more of this instead of all those really bad movies she makes with her husband. And Richard E. Grant is phenomenal in this, playing like her sidekick sort of. And he has this sort of line near the end where he gives her permission to write about him. And it's this like really bittersweet way he delivers it, and it's so good. This movie is great. It's a little bit of a downer, but I didn't mind that. So Can You Ever Forgive Me? This is definitely up there with one of the best films of the year. And that's all from me.
Okay, Springsteen on Broadway is on Netflix. A Simple Favor is on home video?
Yeah, it's on Blu-ray now, and I don't know when the other when Can You Ever Forgive Me comes out. It might actually still be in theaters, so if it is, go see it.
I think so. Brad, what have you been watching?
I haven't been watching too much since I've just been trying to recover from being gone for so long and getting stuff situated at my new place. But I did take the time to watch a few episodes of the second season of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which is now available on Amazon. And so far, so good. It's a strong start to the second season. Definitely mixes things up from the get-go with an amusing and also charming situation involving Mrs. Maisel's parents. And one of the things that was cool for me on a personal note, actually, is in the second or third episode, I think it's the third episode, a friend of mine actually has an appearance in a small bit part as a banker who deals with Joel and his parents in the show. So this is somebody who I went to college with, who I made short films with when I was studying film at Purdue. His name's Tommy Beardmore. He's a good dude. He's a great actor, and it was just so weird to see him in a show that I love playing a bit part, and watching it. So that was pretty cool.
Very cool. Jacob, what have you been watching?
I've been trying to play catch up for end of year coverage. Slash from every year we try to do our best of the year lists, but also various other little lists and other little fun things. So I have a master list of movies to watch. I'm making my way through. But I was seriously sabotaged this week because Netflix added 2 collections of Jeopardy episodes to their library. And there were many nights where I sat down with my wife, we're going to put on something serious that's going to be talked about in the Oscar season. And we said, maybe we should just watch an episode of Jeopardy first to warm up. And suddenly it's midnight. We watched 6 episodes of Jeopardy instead of movies. So I've been watching so much Jeopardy. That show is still good. I mean, it's the best game show ever made. I feel smart while watching it. I love playing along. I love yelling at Alex Trebek and then smug, evil Alex Trebek. It's such a good show. It's so simple. It's just questions and answers done with with just enough humor, just enough grace, just enough intelligence. It doesn't talk down to you. It's just as smart as it's ever been. And the collections on Netflix collect together some of the tournaments of champions, tournaments of past winners. So it's all people who are really good at Jeopardy, all returning to play Jeopardy again. And so, yeah, if you want to put off doing more important things, Jeopardy is on Netflix now. But in terms of movies I actually watched, I finally got around to The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, the new Coen Brothers movie. And I think I'll echo what a lot of people have said about it, which is that it's hit and miss. The stuff that's good is really good. Stuff that's not good really did not work for me. I think its biggest problem is that it peaks early. The first segment, the titular segment starring Buster Scruggs, a singing cowboy, is genuinely incredible and has the biggest laugh of 2018, involving a character played by Clancy Brown in a bar. And I was just cackling so hard doing this because I know in the past I've spoken about my love of old school country songs, old school country western singers, and Buster Scruggs is a character is saying, what if these like really well dressed 1950s cowboys who sing very jolly upbeat songs about like murder and violence actually existed in the Old West and actually were as jolly as they were in these songs while committing murders. And it's a really, really fun takedown, a re-examination of this style of Hollywood, cleaned up cowboy. And it's brilliant. And then the rest of the movie is just hit or miss. Some are good, some are not. Some segments really work. And then there's one, the second to last one, which goes on forever, just goes nowhere. And it's a long road for a very bad punchline. Whereas I think other ones, like there's one starring Liam Neeson that's actually pretty short. It's really heavy stuff, but it has the courtesy to be like maybe 15 minutes long as opposed to 40 minutes long. But yeah, Ballad of Buster Scruggs, it's more Coen Brothers. Each one works or it doesn't, but it's still the Coen Brothers having a good time, experimenting with different genres. It is worth seeing, especially since it's streaming right now on Netflix. But Amazon Prime has You Would Never Really Hear, one of the best films of the year. I know that Chris and HC have talked about this movie quite a bit, both on the site and on the podcast, so I will not go too long on this, but this is Lynn Ramsey's new movie. It is 89 minutes long. It has almost no exposition. There's no fat on it. It is a story of a muscle for hire played by Joaquin Phoenix, a guy named Joe, who's hired to rescue a teenage girl from a sticky situation, to put it lightly, where she's a sex ring of underage girls. And what should be this very straightforward action movie based on that premise, which is Joaquin Phoenix armed to the teeth, smashing his way through bad guys to rescue a girl. With Lynn Ramsey at the helm, it becomes this very somber, terrifying movie where almost all the violence happens off screen. You see the after effects of violence. And Joaquin Phoenix's character Joe is barely a person. He can barely speak. He can barely function. He only comes to life when he's hurting people. And it is incredibly difficult to watch and sometimes very frustrating and maddening by how little it says. But if Lynn Ramsey's goal is to make a violent movie where all the romance is stripped out of the action, where she finds a way to make sure you're never once thrilled by violence and are forced to sort of look at these tropes in a way where you're not excited by them, on that level, it's this really impressive feat, and it left me really shaken. And I'm not sure if I love it quite as much as HT and Chris, but it is an impressive piece of work and a really fantastic movie from a director who really needs to work more often. Chris HT, I want to hear your thoughts real quick. Am I on the right track here? I want to talk about it being an action movie without action.
Oh, absolutely. I adore this film. It, for the longest time, was my number one of the year so far. I'm still figuring out my list. I don't really know where it falls right now, but it's still high up there. And I do like how taut and how trim this is, and how it deals more with the after effects of violence and how that affects Joe's psyche, and how he has, it's kind of like how the real life realization of what we think of as a lone wolf and like protagonist that we see in movies like Taxi Driver, for example. And it's stripped completely of that glamour. And in the end, Joe is not only a stunted man, but he's almost childlike in many ways. There's this one scene, it's not a spoiler, but it's this one scene that really sticks out to me is that he is sitting in this office waiting for like his next orders, and he sees like this bowl of Skittles, and he like plays with it like a child, but then he crushes it and he smiles, and it's this really fascinating look at how like this is this childlike reaction to something, and yet he has this innate violence in him that this is the only way that he can interact with the world, really. And I really love this movie, and I completely agree with what you said, Jacob.
All right. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, I saw Hearts Beat Loud, which is a big hit at Sundance earlier this year. I know that. I know Brad talked about this movie a bit, right, Brad?
Yeah, I really liked it at Sundance. It's really charming, and the soundtrack is especially catchy.
Yeah, and it's such a nice movie. I mean, I watched it on the off chance maybe it could break into my top 10, which it won't. Just wouldn't even make my top 20 of the year. But it's such a nice, pleasant, incredibly feel-good movie about a father and daughter who start a band as the daughter's about to leave for college. It's Nick Offerman, who is just impossibly charming, and Kiersey Clemons, who's impossibly charming, and they're great together, and they're convincing as a father-daughter duo, and the songs all work. It's streaming. I think it's not streaming, but it's you can rent it for Amazon for 99 cents right now, and which is a bargain for a really wonderful, delightful movie. But I want to wrap this up by talking about a movie that I saw the trailer for a few years ago, and it's now streaming on Netflix, and this is Pottersville. I don't think many people have seen this.
I've heard of this movie.
I'm going to explain the first half hour or so of this movie briefly, because if you haven't seen the trailer, you may not believe this exists. Pottersville is a Christmas movie that takes its title from the alternate reality version of Bedford Falls in It's a Wonderful Life. So it's automatically established itself as a Christmas movie by calling itself Pottersville. It is drawing a direct connection. Even the poster has the entire cast decked out in Christmas gear with like snowflakes. The opening credits are shots of snowy streets with Christmas font, and I believe there's even Christmas music playing. And Michael Shannon plays a shop owner in this small town. He does not murder anybody. He's not a mean guy. He's not creepy. He's Michael Shannon playing a very ordinary, nice person. He works with Judy Greer. Just Judy Greer and Michael Shannon star in this movie called Pottersville. And one day, Michael Shannon decides to go home early to surprise his wife and give her a little date night, only to find his wife, played by Christina Hendricks, having an affair with the local town sheriff, played by Ron Perlman, except they're both furries and they're having an affair in furry costumes. So automatically does this big left turn with this crazy cast of people. So then, down on his luck and feeling sad, Michael Shannon's character drinks a bunch of moonshine cooked up by the local old crank played by Ian McShane. So now Michael Shannon, drunk at Ian McShane's moonshine, puts on a gorilla costume to prove to his wife that he could also be a furry, is seen by the townsfolk who think he's Bigfoot. So everybody starts coming to town to hunt for Bigfoot, including a TV reality show star played by Thomas Lennon, using a really crazy Australian accent. And suddenly, this is the first half hour of the movie, guys. This is the first half hour of Pottersville. It's a Christmas movie about Michael Shannon accidentally becoming Bigfoot because his wife was having a furry affair. And it's Ian McShane and Ron Perlman and Christina Hendricks and all these people in this bizarre thing. It's not good. It's a terrible movie, but it exists. It exists, and I'm very happy it exists. Has anybody else witnessed Pottersville?
I know of it. I remember seeing the poster and being like, oh my God. And my original plan was like, I'm going to watch this and I'm going to make fun of it. And then I read an interview with Michael Shannon where someone like flat out asked him like, why are you in this movie? And his answer was literally, it was made by a friend of his who has just had really hard time breaking into the movie business. And he just was like, I wanted to do a nice thing for him and appear in his movie to hope people would recognize him. And reading that, I was like, I felt so bad. I was like, oh, I can't make fun of this now. Michael Shannon did it, as a good gesture. I felt really bad about it. Like, I felt like I was being mean. So I never watched it because Michael Shannon inadvertently shamed me for making fun of Pottersville. So Michael Shannon, despite his creepy persona, is a really nice guy, and he does movies like this as a favor.
Well, I think it's safe to say that the director will not be making anything else anytime soon, Michael Shannon's help aside.
I've heard of this movie. My friend is obsessed with it after he accidentally watched it like 2 years ago. And he has decided to make it a tradition of watching it every Christmas. And he's going to force me to watch it this year, I think. So I will get back to you on this.
Well, Jeopardy you can find on Netflix alongside Buster Scruggs. You Were Never Really Here is on Amazon. Hearts Beat Loud. Where did you see that, Jacob?
It's rentable for 99 cents on Amazon.
And Pottersville. Where can people find that if they want to find it?
If they care to, it is on Netflix.
I feel like, there's only like a handful of movies that I have not seen this year that are like, in that top 10%. Or, top 5%, and one of them is You Were Never Really Here, and one of the other is If Beale Street Could Talk. And Ben, you saw this not once, but twice.
Yes, yeah. My wife was not able to go to the original screening that I saw, but I was able to get into a Film Independent Presents screening and bring her along, and I really wanted to show her this movie because it's one of my favorite films of the year so far. It's Barry Jenkins' new movie. He's the guy who directed Moonlight. And this movie is tremendous. I mean, I talked about it already. I think Chris has reviewed it from the site or for the site, and maybe we'll link to his review in the show notes, and hopefully people will head over there and read the full review. But Barry Jenkins just knocks it out of the park again with this movie. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the score by Nicholas Britell, which is just tremendous. It's this like mixture of jazz that with like horror movie overtones in certain parts. And I also wanted to shout out Brian Tyree Henry, who's having a hell of a year in like 5 or 6 movies, by the way. And he just rolls in for like one major scene in this movie and delivers this incredible scene with Stephen James, who's the lead of the film. And then he's just out of the film. But it's just like it's one of those performances that really, really sticks with me, and one of the best supporting roles, I think, of the year, even though it's only really for just one scene. So, I just wanted to give a quick shout out there. And for people who are in LA, you should really look into Film Independent because they're a terrific organization. They have all sorts of like free member screenings all the time. I think this week they're actually doing a free members-only screening for Destroyer, the new Karen Kusama movie that stars Nicole Kidman, and I haven't seen that yet, and I'm really excited about going to check that out because I think they're going to have a Q&A with Karen Kusama right afterwards. And tickets for that particular show are sold out, but you can go to filmindependent.org and find out more information. They actually are going to have like a standby line, so if you're in LA and interested in checking that movie out, I would recommend trying to look that up and maybe drop by on Wednesday at the ArcLight. And then If Beale Street Could Talk, that comes out in limited release this week in LA and New York, and then actually opens wider on Christmas Day, December 25th. So if you guys have not seen this yet, screenings or otherwise, I would highly recommend adding this to your watch lists because this is a terrific movie. I also had a chance to see RBG, which is a documentary that came out earlier this year. I think it premiered at Sundance this year, and I missed it there. This is about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the Supreme Court Justice. I didn't really know anything about her other than just like the notorious RBG memes and stuff like that you would see pop up on social media here and there. But I knew of her as a pioneering person who made a lot of strides towards women's rights and stuff like that. But I really didn't know anything about the actual accomplishments that she achieved as in her profession or anything about her personally. And this movie does a really good job of just sort of like laying the groundwork and sort of it's a great primer, I think. It's not like a super deep movie that doesn't really dive into any one particular aspect of her. It sort of reminded me of like the Mr. Rogers documentary earlier this year, where it's a really great overview. There are definitely moments where I wish the filmmakers would have focused in on certain aspects and really tried to sort of dig in and uncover a little bit more about the mentality behind certain decisions and things like that. But in terms of, for people who don't know anything about her, which was me in this case, it was a really great breakdown of why she is important and why she matters, and I think it's a really enjoyable movie. So I get this one on it's on Blu-ray right now, and I rented it through the Netflix disc plan, but I think it's occasionally playing on CNN because it's a CNN Films movie. So I don't know, maybe check your local listings. It might be available there. And then one of the other things I had a chance to check out was the most recent episode of The Good Place. And I don't want to talk about this really because I don't want to spoil it. I actually had the premise of this most recent episode spoiled for me, and I was really bummed about that because it would have been great to discover that sort of organically. So I'll try to preserve that experience for everybody else. But I just wanted to give a huge shout out to Darcy Carden, who plays Janet on the show. She is typically been sort of saddled with playing like this Siri type character who just sort of pops up and answers questions for people, and you know, she's been funny and good, and she's actually had the opportunity to play a Bad Place version of her character named Bad Janet, and that lets her really let loose and show a little bit more range as an actress. But this most recent episode is just a huge showcase for Darcy Carden, and I don't want to say anything more about it than that, other than just, man, it's like one of the best episodes of The Good Place so far. The show is in its third season. It's on NBC. I think several seasons, maybe the first two seasons, are already on Netflix right now. So if you haven't seen the show and you want to catch up, that's where you can do it. And you can watch some of the stuff on NBC.com as well. So yeah, Darcy Carden is a queen. She's amazing. And then also, guys, I saw what I think is my least favorite movie of 2018, which is Mortal Engines.
Ouch.
I was shocked. I was in shock at how terrible this movie is. So
wait, Ben, did you see Mary Poppins?
I did, yeah, and I liked it way less than Mary Poppins. And Peter, you know how much I really disliked Mary Poppins Returns. So this is like, it's one of the worst would-be blockbuster, like mainstream movies of the decade. I think it's like, it is a catastrophe on almost every single level. It's a, you know, on a story level, it's basically just an amalgamation of every single young adult story that you've ever seen. There's no originality to this thing at all. The only thing that you could possibly give this movie a pass for is the way that it envisions the worlds, and like it's basically like world building the movie, but the characters are so uninteresting and so uninspiring that, yeah, this world exists, but who gives a crap if these are the people that are populating it? Like, it's just the central love story. There's no reason to invest in a relationship between those two characters. The actors are really, really bad. There's zero chemistry in any of the performances. Hugo Weaving plays one of the primary villains, and he is just like, he's doing the same thing that we've seen him do a million times. And guys, this movie is just like, I was openly laughing in the theater because there were only a few people in the screening that I was at. And like, at a certain point, it just got like ludicrous at how bad this movie was. I'm having trouble putting into words how terrible it is. I mean, again, I don't want to just like completely crap on this thing. There are a couple tiny elements that maybe they don't even save the movie, but they make it like at least not a 100% excruciating experience, and that is just like the production design. There's like some interesting stuff going on. Like, for example, there's a character that the leads run into at a certain point in the movie who's wearing a suit that's entirely made of buttons. And it's like, it's never commented on. It's just, you know, the movie takes place in this sort of post-apocalyptic wasteland. So it's just sort of implied that like people have scrounged around and found these kinds of items, and, you know, they've made clothing with it because that's all they have left. But all of that is like uncommented on. It's like the movie is not interested in the most interesting aspects that it has to offer, which is like these cool production design elements. And the whole rest of it is just a mishmash of really, really basic garbage action template stuff. It feels like it was written by an algorithm or something. There's no heart. There's no, there's nothing interesting. There's nothing even the central concept from all the trailers of like the cities eating each other, that happens one time in the opening scene, and that's it. And it's like, man, it's a huge disappointment. So I would recommend that everyone stay as far away as possible from Mortal Engines.
Ben, how is Stephen Lang in it? Because I'll come up front and say, like, I visited this set for Slash Film last year, and it was a really impressive set. Lots of massive things I saw. I had a good time at that visit. Everybody working on movies is very nice. But this is what you're describing is my concern walking away, that it was going to be a huge mess that didn't quite come together. But Stephen Lang plays a mummy assassin. So how bad can Stephen Lang be as a mummy assassin?
So the thing about that is that character is beyond terrible in every, like, in execution and design and everything. Like, he is, like you say, a zombie mummy assassin, and you would assume that there would be something interesting about that, but it's like, it's a terrible performance, and it's like, so Stephen Lang is completely unrecognizable in it, and that's because I guess he was doing motion capture stuff on the set, but they ended up not even using that, and instead used it more as reference instead of actual performance capture. So it doesn't look like Stephen Lang, and it's not like, like Josh Brolin's Thanos. Like, you can clearly tell that that's part of Josh Brolin's face is in that character, and like you can see the Brolinisms and stuff like that. This is not that. I mean, they used some of Stephen Lang's facial. They put dots on his face, I guess, and like logged all of his facial expressions and stuff like that. But it doesn't come through. It doesn't translate into the actual character as like, oh yeah, I'm watching an actor play this guy. It's man, it is like, sometimes I say the word woof when I see a bad movie, and I can't bark loudly enough at this movie, at Mortal Engines. It is just man, it's an abomination.
Wow, this I'm not gonna lie, like, whenever I do on a set visit, I always feel like, oh, I'm rooting for those guys, because you meet people firsthand making a movie. You meet the people working hard. And I was rooting hard for Mortal Engines, even as the year went on, and started realizing, oh, Universal's not marketing this. Oh, these trailers are bad. Why aren't they showing things? What's going on? And I started growing increasingly less optimistic, and man, like, you have... Wow, that's this is what I feared, and I feel really bad for everybody who I met on that set, because, whew...
Yeah, and like Peter Jackson and Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens, the team who wrote the Lord of the Rings movies, wrote the script here. And I mean, I have not read the original book, so I can't speak to that. But the script is really awful, and it is. I mean, I'm right there with you, Jacob. I was actually kind of looking forward to this because I felt like there was the opportunity for it to be really fun, like almost like a Wachowski type of movie. And some of the shots from the trailers gave me that impression, like there's these airships and stuff. It seemed like something almost out of like Cloud Atlas, like the futuristic section of Cloud Atlas. And I love that movie. And I was kind of hoping that this film would be fun in that way. And it is, the Wachowskis always are using action and effects and all of that stuff to explore theme and characters. And this movie, the theme is just... well, I don't want to give anything away, but it is just man, it's so basic and so uninspired. It's just a disaster of a movie. So I was very, very disappointed with Mortal Engine.
That sounds disappointing. Judging by the trailers, the only thing that seemed of interest to me was really the world building, but you have not given me any confidence in that it's worth seeing the movie for that alone. So
yeah, it's not. Like, sometimes characters will just be like, oh, this reminds me of the great hills of Abarnan or something, and it's like you can't just say that and never do anything with it and expect us to buy into the fact that this is a larger world if we don't care about the people who are saying these lines. I don't know. I mean, obviously I made that line up, but the sentiment still stands.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to HT. What, besides Bumblebee and The Favorite, what have you been watching?
I also saw another period piece aside from The Favorite called Mary, Queen of Scots. And this was a movie that stars Saoirse Ronan and Margot Robbie. And it's about the titular Mary, Queen of Scots, who famously conspired to take the throne from her cousin, Queen Elizabeth, played by Margot Robbie. And it's fine. I remember going into it kind of intrigued by having this female-led period piece and wondering if they would go into some sort of interesting female dynamic. be historically accurate, these two people, Mary Stuart and Elizabeth, never met in person. So it makes sense that like a lot of the tension that takes place in this film happens through envoys or through letters, and they kind of play it well in like drawing these parallels between Mary, who is a very passionate firebrand and very ambitious, and Elizabeth, who is all powerful but is extremely paranoid. And they kind of have these two interesting storylines that kind of not fall apart. They don't really connect in the end. The movie ends up being more about Mary, and it's just while Saoirse Ronan and Margot Robbie are great, they're phenomenal in these roles. The movie itself is just kind of fine. It's very sprawling, and it's written by Beau Willimon, who you may know from House of Cards, and it kind of has that same sort of intrigue, or rather soap by way of intrigue. It feels like there's a lot of these sordid affairs that are somehow supposed to make us feel like this movie is more interesting than it is, and how it ties into the political intrigue going on. But I felt myself being mostly bored by a lot of it, and which is unfortunate because, again, Saoirse and Margot are so great in it. And it's kind of once I saw The Favorite later, I was very excited to see that was the movie that I kind of wanted Mary Queen of Scots to be. So standing them side by side, there's really no question which one's a better period piece and has more interesting even depictions of LGBT characters. So Mary Queen of Scots, all right. And then I also saw Roma, which I absolutely loved. So this is a film that I've been looking forward to for a while. It's directed by Alfonso Cuarón, and it's a very intimate, sort of his intimate magnum opus. It's about his own life growing up in Mexico, and kind of about from the point of view of this maid who works for this rich family. And it kind of drifts really slowly for the first half, so much so that I didn't really know where it was going. But by the end, it is like it envelops you in his memories and in his experiences, and in the main character's experiences, played brilliantly by the actress Yalitza Aparicio. I'm very sorry for mispronouncing that. She's phenomenal in it. And this movie is it's such an experience, and it's so immersive. I saw it in a Dolby theater, and I didn't expect it to be quite such a cinematic experience as it is. It really makes use of its sound design expertly well. The crowd scenes, for example, it kind of is done in like this surround sounds, and it's so pinprick accurate that for a lot of the times I would turn around angrily thinking that someone was talking behind me when in fact it was part of the movie. And it just kind of envelops you the entire time. So I really enjoyed it. And
You're like the fourth person I've seen that has said that exact thing for that scene in that movie, which makes me wonder, like, can surround sound be too good? Like, that to me feels like it would be distracting and not immersive.
I mean, I think that if you didn't realize it took me a while to realize it, but then when I did, it does like become more immersive than distracting. I don't think it was like overly distracting. It was kind of like in the corner of your ear more than anything. It's a really beautiful film. It's really it's very sumptuous, I would say, even though it's in black and white. And I highly recommend it. I know you saw it on a screener, which I don't recommend at all.
I made the mistake. People were chastising me on social media this weekend about this. You know, I saw it on a screener. This was, I think, before it was playing in theaters. And I regret, like, 5 minutes into the movie, I was like, I regret watching this on the screener. And I, like, even turned to Kitra and was like, you know, maybe we should shut this off and like see it. But like we had just already started. I don't know. I was so excited to see it. I regret, like, this is like one of my biggest regrets of this year is watching Roma on a screener. But it is, even though the quality of DVD, you're missing out on, you know, the clarity of that vision, it still comes through. Like the beauty of every single frame and the way he, presents every scene. Like, it still comes through on even like, archaic technology of a DVD.
It's kind of amazing to me that screeners are still mostly sent on DVDs, and really crappy ones at that.
I think it's because they don't want people. It's about piracy. Like, they're worried about people in the industry or people getting a hold of the copies and uploading them online. I did watch my DVD on like my projector, which is like a 160-inch screen, so it was a big screen HD, but it was just taking that data and stretching it so you saw the pixels. It was pretty bad.
I hope you get the chance to see it in theaters at some point, and before it gets on Netflix later this month. Another one I saw was They Shall Not Grow Old, which is a documentary about World War One, directed by Peter Jackson. This is the Peter Jackson movie that you should see this season, and it was done in collaboration with BBC archival footage, and he basically used 100+ year footage that was shot during the time in World War One, and created a full-fledged immersive, I guess you would say, documentary out of this. It plays like a modern documentary despite being from 100-year-old archival footage. And this is a movie that we had to watch with 3D glasses, which kind of annoyed me at first because I'm like, why? This is a World War I documentary. But then you realize as the screen expands from the old black and white grainy footage to this widescreen, colorized, almost like animated looking footage, why those 3D glasses are there. And it's very essential because it adds all this depth and like extra beauty to this film. And he does an amazing job of creating this World War I documentary. And I haven't seen a lot of World War I documentaries, but it's definitely one of probably the best I've seen. And it really puts you into the trenches, as they say. So I recommend this. I'm writing a review about this later on that will be published probably next week. But it's going to be showing in theaters for only a few days in limited theaters in December 17th and 27th. So if you get a chance to see this, check this out instead of Mortal Engines.
Yeah, Roma is in limited release right now. It will be on Netflix soon. Mary Queen of Scots, where can people see that?
That is in theaters now. I think it's actually in wide release, yes.
Okay. Let's move on to what we've been eating. While I was at the AMC theater, I know Brad loves to hate these Coca-Cola, what do they call those machines, Brad?
The freestyle machines.
Freestyle machines. I like them because I like the choice of having like weird mixtures of soda. And
wait, why do you hate them, Brad? I'm curious.
So I like the idea of having all these flavor options, but the problem is because of how the machine works, the syrup itself is never as good when it's mixed with the soda because it's constantly bringing in like fragments of the other flavors that have gone through the machine, and so it doesn't taste quite as good as it's supposed to.
Brad's right. Brad's correct here.
Listen, if you're getting like a specific thing, yes, you're right, but you can get all sorts of flavors that you couldn't get like at the grocery store, and that's what I usually do with these machines. So it doesn't matter to me because these aren't like I'm not getting a subpar version of lime Fanta or whatever because
there are flavors that are good through it, but like if you're in the mood for like a grape soda is the worst thing you could possibly get from the freestyle Coke machine.
I have not tried that. Well, I'm not sure if this is a regular thing or if this is something they just started this holiday, but at AMC theaters on their freestyle machines, they have holiday flavors. They have like a button that's for these mixtures that they have created just for this holiday season. They have like this winter Wonder Lime Fanta. They have a vanilla cherry Coke flavor. They have a bunch of different flavors. So I was trying those while I was at the AMC theater. Brad, you have no interest in these?
No. Actually, I when I was in Utah, we went out to eat somewhere, and it had a freestyle machine, and I saw that they had the holiday flavors on there too. I actually forgot to mention it on the podcast, but I had the cherry vanilla Coke because that's kind of hard to screw up with the freestyle machine. But I haven't tried any of the others yet. I think that they actually changed the flavors each year. Some of them are flavors that are just normal. They've just renamed them as holiday flavors because like you can get a cherry vanilla Coke anytime you want to from a freestyle machine. But yeah, so they're not bad, but again, just in general, like a good amount of the flavors, especially when it comes to the fruit flavors, are marred by the fact that they just don't taste as pure as they're supposed to if you had like that actual syrup from a fountain that served only that flavor.
I love the lime Fanta Zero, which is a flavor that you would never get in a grocery store. Kitra hates that I get it every time we go to the movie theater because she does not like it, and she usually, shares my drink. But what else have I been eating? One of my favorite restaurants, Doughboys, closed in LA, I think a year ago. Last time I ate there was the night that Trump got elected, so there's some bad feelings there. But in its place is a new barbecue place called Slab. So this is on 3rd Street, I believe, in Los Angeles. And this is a place that there used to be this guy that in his backyard would make this Texas-style barbecue. And it was called Trudy's Underground Barbecue, and he had an Instagram account. It was like this big sensation in Los Angeles. He would post photos whenever he was making brisket and stuff, and you had to like enter a lottery, and if you entered the lottery, you could buy barbecue from his like, that barbecue that he would do that weekend or whatever. And it was this really limited, hard to get thing, and a lot of people were always after it. This guy finally got his own restaurant, and it's called Slab, and it's on 3rd Street. And I've been there not once, not twice, but 3 times over the last week. It is the best brisket I've ever had outside of Austin, Texas. It is so good. I highly recommend it if you're in LA. And there is currently, on the weekends, a line down the street, and they like run out of their like good brisket by like 2 p.m. So you got to get there early and wait in a line. Not as bad as Hauling Ray. It's probably only like 15-20 minutes, but I highly recommend it. Brad, next time you're in town, we'll have to get some barbecue.
I am totally down for that.
What have you been eating, Brad?
So pretty basic stuff, but it is new stuff. In case you haven't seen commercials lately, Kentucky Fried Chicken has finally made the decision that they should have made so long ago to have chicken and waffles at their locations. It's a limited time thing, but I immediately wanted to go out of my way to try it, and it's pretty much as good as you would expect fast food chicken and waffles to be. The waffle is a little bit better than expected because they do something special with the mixture, and I forget what it is that's actually in like what they actually do with the batter, but it's pretty good. So they give you the syrup along with it. You can either get like the actual chicken that they have, or you can get chicken strips with it instead. And it's a pretty good combination. The salty and sweet works, and for like I said, for fast food chicken and waffles, it's a pretty good option if you don't have something like a Waffle House near you.
What else have you been eating?
And so I mentioned when I was in Utah that I discovered the tastiness of apple beer, and since it's not easily available in this area, I'm not going to Indianapolis anytime soon to get it from whatever store they have it at down there. I did stumble upon a pretty decent replacement for the time being at Aldi's. They had these 4-packs of Nature's Nectar sparkling apple cider. And it is about as close to apple beer as I could have asked for. It tastes a little less like soda and just more like apple cider that has carbonation in it. And it is really, really good. I'm going to have to go back and get some because I'm pretty sure it's on its way out seasonally since fall is over. But it is fantastic. If you have an Aldi's near you or you know where to find Nature's Nectar sparkling apple cider, I recommend go out of your way to get some.
What is Aldi's?
Oh, you guys don't have Aldi's out there. So Aldi's is like a discount grocery store chain. It's just a Midwest thing. I'm actually not sure. I thought it was pretty widespread. But they have a lot of generic off-brand groceries that are cheaper. It's usually the kind of discount stuff where like it's closer to the expiration date than stuff you would find in like normal grocery stores. Not that it's like going to expire tomorrow necessarily, but it's close enough that like most of the regular grocery stores have already gotten rid of like some of their extra stock and stuff like that. So that's why stuff is usually cheaper there.
Okay, let's move on to our last and final section. That is what we've been playing. Jacob, it seems like you've been playing a lot of video games lately.
Yeah, did you guys know there's a new Super Smash Bros. Game out? I mean, it's of course, if you've been following video games at all, this is all everybody's talking about. It's the fifth game in the Super Smash Bros. Series. This is the series where all the Nintendo characters get to fight each other and hit each other with things across various stages based on video games. And it is more Smash Brothers. It is. The controls haven't changed. They've gotten smoother. The graphics have gotten better. This new one has everything has been all the past games plus more. I mean, it expands way beyond Nintendo. There's like Sonic and Pac-Man and Final Fantasy characters in it now. It's ridiculous. It's just this massive. It's a massive party of a game. And I was originally really hesitant to play it. I thought maybe I was over Smash Brothers. Maybe the years of playing in dorm rooms in high school before I stopped playing for a little while had gotten me really off it. Like I didn't need it anymore. But after playing at a friend's house, I immediately went out and bought a copy. It's just a really satisfying, fun multiplayer game. And if you want like video game nostalgia, like just the amount of music and characters and backgrounds and the amount of stuff there, like to tickle your memories, is amazing. But also, it just is a really fun game. It's really easy to pick up and play, and it can handle up to 8 players at once. So you bring it to a party, and everybody's happy. So yeah, is
it the kind of game where I should buy a Nintendo Switch for it?
I think it adds the argument. I mean, between Smash Brothers, Super Mario Odyssey, Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and the incredible indie library that's now available on the Switch store. Like this amount of indie games there is alone makes it worth buying. I think that between the core Nintendo games and the indie games that are like worth buying, of which there are hundreds on the Switch store, it's also a lot of crap. So you got to sort through it. Makes the Switch the biggest bargain in video games right now. I mean, I love my Xbox, I love my PlayStation, but my Switch is being used almost every single day right now.
Yeah, because I loved playing Smash Brothers on the Wii, and I was pretty damn good at it. And then I got rid of my Wii, and I haven't played Smash Brothers in forever. So I keep seeing videos and people talking about it, and I kind of want to play again. Yeah,
Brad, I don't know what. I want to tell you, hey, yeah, go spend $300. It's worth it, but it is worth it. I mean, like I said, just the sheer amount of stuff on my Switch, the sheer amount of games I've been wanting to play for years that were like PC only, they're now suddenly on the Switch, and are now portable. It's kind of mind-boggling. So in addition to Smash Brothers, I mean, just the Switch is just this magical little device. Yeah. Whether you're playing on your TV or you're playing in handheld.
Kitra's currently addicted to the new Pokemon game. I can't like get her off that thing. She's like trying to get them all, I guess.
Yeah, I haven't picked it up yet. I have friends who are loving it. I haven't played Pokemon since Red and Blue in '98, so I it's not something I am super attached to playing, but I have really fond memories of it. But we'll see. Maybe I'll get around to playing it someday. But speaking of smaller games on Nintendo Switch, I replayed Steam World Dig, a game I played on PlayStation 4 years ago. It's a steampunk Western robot game where you play a robot miner digging through the earth, finding like puzzles, solving all kinds of little puzzles, fighting enemies, and navigating. The whole joy of this game is navigating. You upgrade your pickaxe and your drill, and you have to like drill into the earth and find passages and create ways to get in and out and get back to town to sell the things you find and upgrade your stuff. And it's a very short game. If you play it like start to finish, it's only a few hours long. I think I beat it in 5 hours. My second playthrough. Probably get up maybe 8 hours if you like really see everything, but it's super cheap now. I think I bought it on sale for $5, but I think it's normally 10. And it's just a really fun, colorful, nice game to play. Never really difficult, but just challenging enough to let you relax. But the sequel game is actually SteamWorld Dig 2 out there. I have not played it yet, but it's another sequel. It's set in the same universe called SteamWorld Heist, which is once again you play as steampunk robots, except instead of mining, you're on a spaceship in this Firefly-esque galaxy, flying around, raiding other ships, getting supplies, building crews, upgrading your crews, giving them the right guns, and stealing crap from other robots. And it is the closest I've played to a great Firefly video game. It has that same vibe, the same Western sci-fi vibe. It's just, robots instead of people. And it is a turn-based strategy, so you're controlling your team of robots, and you equip them, you send them in to the enemy ship, you tell them where to go, you tell them which items to use, you have to use the right weapons and items at the right times. It's not complex strategy. If you're looking for like a super in-depth, deep strategy game, I mean, Civilization 6 is now available on Nintendo Switch as well. That's probably more of your speed, but this is really fun. It's a great game to play while you have like the show you're half watching on. Like if you're watching Property Brothers Marathon HGTV on a Sunday morning, it's great to play SteamWorld Heist while you watch that. And it's also a relatively cheap game. I think I got it for $15. I'm not sure what the actual price is normally, but SteamWorld Heist is very good.
Cool. And all of those games are available on the Switch? Or no, you said...
Yep.
Yeah.
Those Smash Brothers is a Switch exclusive. SteamWorld Dig and SteamWorld Heist are available on multiple consoles. I believe PS4, PC, Xbox. I'm pretty sure they're available wherever you can buy a video game.
Okay, that brings us to the end of today's Slash Film Daily. You can find more of all of our work on slashfilm.com. You can find this podcast, Slash Film Daily, on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps. Please feel free to send us your feedback, questions, comments, concerns, or if you're looking for life advice from Chris, you can send them to peter@slashfilm.com. That's peter@slashfilm.com. Please leave your name and general geographic location in case we mention the email on the air. And as always, please go to our iTunes page, write us a 5-star review, tell your friends, spread the word, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Hey Peter, we can't end the show yet.
Jacob, we've gone. It's an hour and 35 minutes.
It's a very long show, but the most important part of the show has not happened yet.
And that would be?
That would be where I open up the Gargantuan Book of Insult, Offense, and Effrontery by Louis A. Safian, and I read some insults for all of you.
Is there any holiday insults? Is there...
I'm not sure if there's a holiday section, but we'll save those for close to the holidays. Right now, I've opened up to page 257 in the Do Nothings section. Hey, Peter, do you drink?
Sometimes.
Well, you stand with a cocktail shaker in your hand, waiting for an earthquake.
Wait, I'm confused, Jacob.
You're too lazy to shake the actual thing, so you wait for the earthquake to do it for you.
Yeah,
that's jokes that need to be explained.
Yeah. Well, Ben is suffering from overwork. Overworking his alibi for why he isn't working. And HT just moved to New York City, so she's known as the NYU lady. NYU standing for New York Unemployed.
That doesn't make any sense because she works here.
Well, Brad can fall asleep even while running for a bus.
Oh, that's true. 100%.
Let's see. I need... oh, no. Chris, I haven't done you yet.
Yes,
well,
don't
Chris,
leave me out.
When he got married, he probably told his wife, a successful career woman, that marriage and a career don't mix. Since then, he's never worked.
Oh, a lot of jokes about not working this week.
Yeah, it's from the.
I think he's trying
section.
to send us a message here.
Yes, we're all lazy.
Yeah, I need to crack the whip a little harder. God. So much not going up in slashfilm.com, guys. So many articles left unwritten.
Well, we've all been on this podcast for the last 2 hours, so I'm not even sure if there's posts going up.
I've been watching all kinds of things not happen on the site, Peter. Every day, all day. Everybody's fault. Except me. I'm the best.
You are the best, Jacob.
Thank you, HC. You're no longer lazy.
Thanks.
Is she employed now?
Oh, yeah, she's employed.
Magically employed.
Peter, I'm firing you from your own site until you tell me I'm the best.
You're the best around.
Hooray! You are now the owner of slashfilm.com again, Peter Sciretta.
Yeah. I don't even know where to go with this.
Straight out the door.
Yes. Out the window.